When people talk about Mortal Kombat's worst games, some titles usually always come up. Games like Mortal Kombat Mythologies, Mortal Kombat Special Forces, maybe even Mortal Kombat 4. And honestly, they're not wrong. But I chose this period not because the games were just bad, it's that Mortal Kombat was just genuinely struggling in this period. Today it's easy to look at Mortal Kombat as one of the biggest fighting game franchises ever. Even if, Mortal Kombat 1 sort of failed to us, it sort of feels untouchable because it was still successful. But there was a point where that wasn't true. There was a point where the series felt lost. The arcade boom was dying, Mortal Kombat 1 to Mortal Kombat 3, and competition was getting stronger with Soul Calibur and Tekken rising, especially in the PS2 era, and Mortal Kombat kept making decision after decision after decision that really left fans scratching their heads, because this wasn't just a single rough game, it was an entire era that was just bad. And if things have gone a little differently, there's a real chance that Mortal Kombat wouldn't even be here today. It probably would have been dead. So let's talk about Mortal Kombat's darkest era, the years where the franchise completely lost its way and it was just bad. That's all I could really say. But if you guys don't know me by now, I'm Mr. Frosty Flames. We do anything gaming, news, reviews, playthroughs, analysis, etc. And we do it in a chill way with no over editing BS. So if you like that style of content, be sure to hit that sub button and join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Anyways, let's get back to the video. So to understand this period in Mortal Kombat history, you have to understand what was happening around Mortal Kombat, the fighting game landscape, because that was changing fast. Like I said, Tekken was becoming huge. To others, 3D fighting games were becoming the future. Arcades weren't dominating the industry like they once did, and Mortal Kombat suddenly found itself in a very awkward position because the formula that made the franchise famous wasn't enough anymore. People weren't playing arcades like they once were doing before, especially since actual modern home consoles were coming out, and the series needed to evolve. The problem was that Mortal Kombat wasn't entirely sure how, and that uncertainty would lead to some very questionable decisions. See, like Mortal Kombat 4, take a look at that. That was a warning sign. Now, before anyone gets mad, I'm not saying Mortal Kombat 4 is terrible. There are definitely fans who love it, and honestly I understand why, but when you compare that to what its competitors were doing at the time, it becomes clear that something was very wrong. The move to 3D felt very awkward. Like, even if you play Mortal Kombat 4 on the Legacy Collection, it is one of the most awkward Mortal Kombat games I've ever played. It's really strange, the animation looks strange, the sound effects were very good, but the graphics were not so good. Like, I'd rather play the arcade graphics than the Mortal Kombat 4 graphics. And many of the new characters that were introduced in Mortal Kombat 4 struggled to leave an impact. We got characters like Jarek, Kai, Raiko, Tanya, and while some of them eventually gained fans like Raiko and Tanya, two of my favorite characters, most of them didn't really make a huge splash at the time. A lot of players looked back at Mortal Kombat 4 and they were like, yeah, this is where Mortal Kombat started to fall behind. It wasn't dead, but it was definitely behind, and unfortunately things were about to get worse because around the same time we had Mortal Kombat Mythologies. If Mortal Kombat 4 was a warning sign, Mythologies was the alarm going off. I appreciate Mythologies for trying something different. I really do, because experimentation isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing. But the problem is that Mythologies wasn't very fun. The controls were frustrating, the platforming was frustrating, the difficulty was frustrating. Honestly, everything about the game seemed to frustrate the player. It's one of those games where every cool idea comes with 3 headaches attached. The lore was interesting. It was supposed to focus on Sub-Zero. He was interesting. The cutscenes were memorable for all the wrong reasons. It was live action. But when people think about Mythologies today, they usually don't think about its strengths. They think about the pain, the suffering, and that's never really a good sign when looking back at a game. But this wasn't even the worst of it, because next we had Mortal Kombat Special Forces, and as you guys know, that game was a disaster. Honestly, this might be the closest Mortal Kombat has ever come to completely losing the plot, because everything that was wrong with this era seems to mash together into this game. The gameplay wasn't good, the graphics weren't impressive, the level design wasn't good, even the story wasn't really interesting. Even longtime Mortal Kombat fans struggled to defend it, but the worst part about it is this was supposed to expand the universe. Instead, it damaged it. Mortal Kombat Special Forces felt less like a Mortal Kombat game and more like somebody vaguely describing Mortal Kombat from memory. It's just not a bad Mortal Kombat game. It's one of the most infamous games games in the franchise, and for good reason, because it was just horrible. I think that is the worst Mortal Kombat game ever made. And another issue I want to talk about during this era was the characters. Now, before anyone gets upset, not every new character was bad. Some eventually became fan favorites like Reiko, Tanya, and say maybe Quan Chi. But during this period, a lot of the newcomers failed to connect with audiences. Some felt underdeveloped, some were just generic, and others were replacements for characters that fans loved. Like Jarek was supposed to be the new Kano, but he just sucked. He didn't have that Kano charisma. And some characters never reached their full potential like Kai. Many characters simply lacked the presence of the arcade era icons, and that's a huge problem because Mortal Kombat has always been built on memorable fighters like Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Raiden, Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, those people. The new generation struggled to reach that level, and fans immediately noticed. You know, the franchise as a whole felt lost, and this is the biggest issue of all. The franchise didn't seem to know what it wanted to be. One game was trying platforming, another was trying action adventure, another was trying 3D fighting. The identity felt inconsistent. Instead of building on strengths, Mortal Kombat kept chasing different ideas, you know, and some of these ideas were interesting, but most of them weren't fully developed. You know, I would love to see an action adventure Mortal Kombat game, maybe even a platforming one, but these ones just sucked. And when fans looked at other fighting game franchises, Mortal Kombat suddenly didn't seem nearly as confident. The series sort of felt uncertain, like it was searching for the right answer. We need the right game to come out to be good, and that's a dangerous position for any franchise to be in. But here's the funny thing about this whole thing. This era matters because as bad as this era was, I don't think it was entirely negative because failures often teach lessons, and Mortal Kombat learned a lot. The franchise learned what didn't work, it learned what fans actually wanted, and it learned that simply putting the Mortal Kombat name on anything wasn't enough. Those lessons would become incredibly important later in the franchise history because eventually the series would get another chance, a chance to reinvent itself, and I'm talking about Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time here because this video is specifically about the era between, you know, Mortal Kombat 4, Mythologies, Special Forces, and plus I already made a video on how Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance sort of saved the franchise, but I'll go over it a little bit because after years of uncertainty, Deadly Alliance finally felt like Mortal Kombat had a direction again. You know, this game took a bunch of risks. The story felt bold by immediately killing off their main protagonist, Liu Kang. The gameplay felt fresh with a modernized for the time 3D era gameplay and 3D mechanics. The villains were dangerous, you know, the Deadly Alliance, and most importantly, fans were excited again. Deadly Alliance didn't just give Mortal Kombat a good game at the time, it gave the franchise hope. And honestly, that's exactly what Mortal Kombat needed again. So when people talk about Mortal Kombat's darkest era, it's easy to focus on the bad games or games right now like Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat 1, but we had it way worse back then. We had the awkward experiments, the disappointing releases, even the questionable characters, and trust me, there was plenty of that. But what makes this era fascinating is how close Mortal Kombat came to just dying. The franchise wasn't just making bad decisions, it was searching for a future. Sometimes that search led to Mortal Kombat Mythologies, sometimes it led to Mortal Kombat Special Forces, and even Mortal Kombat 4, and most of the time the results weren't really pretty. But without those failures, we probably don't even get Deadly Alliance, we don't even get Deception, not even the 3D era renaissance that many fans still love today, because while this has been Mortal Kombat's darkest era, it also was the era that taught the franchise how to survive. And honestly, that might be the most important chapter in Mortal Kombat history. But that's just my take on it. Let me know what you guys think down below. What is the worst Mortal Kombat game in your opinion? For me, it would probably be Mortal Kombat 4 or Mortal Kombat Mythologies. Maybe leaning towards Mythologies, because I played it and it was really horrible. You had to do everything perfect, like the platforming, and it was just very awkward. The controls, it just sucked. That's my worst Mortal Kombat game. Let me know what yours is down below. But that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. If you like this video, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe to join the Mr. Frosty Flames Legion. Thank you guys for watching. Mr. Frosty Flames out. Ciao.